Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. This is episode 1. Let me fix this. Of the internet's busiest film nerd. I only kind of came up with the name because I was watching Anthony Fantano, and I recently watched a Reddit AMA with Anthony Fantano, and wow, that man is dedicated. He is very dedicated to doing music. It's very inspiring, and that's sort of the idea for this. Not doing music, sorry. He's dedicated to recording music, and God, he's dedicated to listening to music. His output of being able to receive information or receive music and formulate an opinion. Like, there's some videos where he watches a music video, and within right after that he has a whole synopsis that's a 10-minute long video. But yeah, after seeing his dedication, I was like, it'd be interesting to do the same thing that he does, just from a film standpoint. Because although he's a music critic, people don't understand that's his opinion, and it says in the description, which is funny. Yeah, and it doesn't make sense because people take his rankings so seriously, and it's his opinion, you know? Anyways, this episode, I'm going to be talking about Love by Gaspar Noé. Film came out in 2015. And we're looking at the Wikipedia page here. It says it's an erotic drama art film written and directed by Gaspar Noé, and the film was released in 2015 at the Cannes Film Festival in 3D. That is, in the head premiere, yeah. Cannes Film Festival. And that's very interesting because this was his, it says right here, he hadn't made a film in 5 years. And so this was kind of him coming back to it. And I think there's a lot of things to be said about it, which I was going to kind of talk about this review on IMDb. Forget the marketing chatter, this is a real film here. The 3D sex is well marketed, and yes, during certain scenes people got up and left, yet the film doesn't argue to be anything beyond a meandering stroll into the gallows melancholy, which is entirely true. Although the sex is abundant, it seems that it's representing something. And I'll kind of get into that in a second when we start to break down the story. So the story goes, Murphy is an American cinema student or film student living in Paris. He had a French girlfriend called Electra, whom he dated for 2 years. One day, Murphy and Electra meet and had a no-strings-attached threesome with another woman, a young, blonde Danish teenager named Omi, O-M-I. So there's Murphy, Electra, and Omi. As a way to add some excitement to their life, but later, Murphy had sex with Omi behind Electra's back, as a result in which Omi became pregnant. The condom broke while they were trying to have sex. And she's very against abortion, which it just says it doesn't matter. This unplanned pregnancy ended the relationship between Murphy and Electra on a horrible note, and it forced Murphy to live with Omi. On one rainy January, it's brand new day, it's January 1st, New Year, Electra's mother, her name is Nora, attempts to call Murphy. Nora asks Murphy if he has heard from Electra. Nora has not heard from her in 3 months. Given Electra's suicidal tendencies, Nora is quite worried for her. For the rest of the day, Murphy recalls his relationship with Electra in a series of fragmented, non-linear flashbacks. Those flashbacks depict their first meeting in Paris, their quick hookup, and their lives over the next 2 years, which are filled with drug use, rough sex, and tender moments. Yeah, it's interesting because the story starts when he's awakened with the phone call of Nora, the mother of Electra, and he doesn't want to talk to her. He's confused why, and during this whole beginning scene, he's going through a bunch of monologues, kind of saying how he hates his life right now, and I'll kind of go into my opinion about that in a second, but he's talking about his feelings, and he doesn't know whether or not he should confess to Omi, his now blonde significant other with a child, whether or not he should tell her that Electra is missing and that her mother is looking for her. Eventually he admits to it, and they start to... I think he admits to it first, and then he starts to go into flashbacks. And this is kind of where the story is told, or where the majority of the story is, with these flashbacks. I kind of have a quarrel with the entire idea of, or why the director decided to do the flashbacks. Because I would assume... I guess this comes into my idea of what I think a film should be. I think a film should be personal, but I also think that it should be able to reach mass audiences. And there's sort of a duality to that. Being able to walk a fine line between, I want to make a film the way I want to make a film, but I also want to make a film so other people can watch it too. And so, kind of going off of that, it seems like the way he structured the flashbacks, it seemed like he wanted to... let me explain it. The flashbacks start at the end of the relationship. Like, he's just seen her at a club, and he's like, what is he doing with that girl? Or what is he doing with my girl? It's been like a couple of weeks or something like that. And he follows her home to her apartment, and he starts like banging on her door saying he misses her. He opens the door, finds out his best friend is in there doing drugs with her. He thinks that they're having sex. But what I'm saying is that the story begins there. It begins at the end of the relationship. And the very last scene was the last time, or the very first time they met each other. So it goes, the story's told backwards during an entire day. And I think the idea is that we're following the character of Murphy in his bedroom or in his apartment in Paris. And we're looking at his memories. So if he hasn't seen this girl in 2 years, he's not going to think about... okay, maybe some people would think about random memories, but at least for me, I would think about the first memory or the last time I saw them. And that's sort of the direction the director went. And so he's like, the last time I saw them to the first time I saw them is the end of the story. I hope that makes sense. And because of this, it makes the story more personal, so we know we're like in his head. But this is what I'm trying to say, is that it's no longer accessible to audiences. I feel like the way he structured it in the beginning, we already knew that she was a significant other. And he mentions that it's my ex-girlfriend Electra's mother. And that's before they even go into the memories. So we already know that Murphy... we're trying to find out why Murphy is no longer talking to this girl, Electra, in the very beginning. So it would make sense that when he goes through the flashbacks, if we want a story that's more suspenseful to keep viewers engaged, we would want the story told beginning to end. Because then we're like, okay, how did they break up? At the very end of the movie, we get told that. But throughout the whole movie, we're trying to think about how it happens. And it seems like because this film isn't... the story isn't that interesting, aside from the sex scenes, which do provide information, which I said I'll talk about in a second. Aside from those sex scenes, the story is very dull. It has great cinematics, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's very dull, and it's not that interesting. So even, I think him telling it chronologically, from when he met her, the last time they talked, would seem more suspenseful, seem like a better way of telling a story, but because of the dullness of the story, he decided against it. I don't know, but for me, I would be like, this is personal enough. Let me attempt to make a story that's a little bit more accessible, and that's why I would want it more suspenseful. I hope that makes sense. It's just the idea that he told the story backwards instead of forwards. And it's interesting. I just want to note that whenever he's in his bedroom, he's sort of saying these cheesy monologues, and I didn't understand it. I'm not a big fan of that. I like the idea of true cinema. Like, people kind of talk about it. It's not really a thing anymore. Just look up Hitchcock True Cinema. Just kind of read up about it. I might do a video about it. That might be kind of cool. But yeah, the idea of true cinema is that you should tell stories through moving images, not sound, not acting, not storytelling. And what that means is that cinema is its own independent art because of that. And he would just use these cheesy monologues in the very beginning, or in the whole bedroom scene, to describe what the character is feeling. And I'm like, if we're looking at this character, We know he doesn't. He's questioning whether or not he could have just had one simple monologue saying, "I don't know whether or not I should call this girl." Even he could have just said it to his significant other, and we would know. But it's like we have to go through these little cheesy monologues saying, "God, I hate my life," or "I'm so sad," or just these super angsty type monologues. And are they called monologues? They're more like voiceovers. And throughout these voiceovers, he's just saying the most blatantly obvious things ever. It's like he's like, "I'm gonna sit down," and then he'll sit down. It's like you could just simply say, or just simply do it, and you understand. And we understand he was sad during that time. I'm just saying I didn't like it, didn't really care for it. As for the sex scenes, I think that that's something to be noted. It's kind of excess. Like there's a lot of it, and let me read one of the reviews. Let me see if I can find one. Sex doesn't sell well. Love is Gaspar's latest film. It's essentially porn. Long, drawn-out sequences of sex throughout, but there's a story, and that's what'd be interesting about this film. Not since the early 70s has pornographic films experimented telling actual stories instead of just getting straight to the business. Nymphomaniac, the last film of the modern era, attempted this, blah blah blah. It seems like that was really the selling point for this film, which makes sense because you can literally cut that. The film is... It's 135 minutes. I promise you that could be 80 minutes long. 80 minutes or less. 80 to 60 to 80 minutes. If you just got rid of... And you made the sex scenes maybe 15 seconds long, 10 seconds long. My thing... And if you look here for the production... The film is notable for its unsimulated sex scenes. According to NPR, roughly half of Gaspar's Noe love consists of raw, unsimulated sex, presented in 3D. In most cases, the sex scenes were not choreographed. It's like, wow, okay. So you hired some people, you said, we're trying to make a really good movie. Okay, so now I need to have sex, and it's this really, really, really beautiful scene, and it's the last time, or say it's chronologically, and the first one is this violent, aggressive, I hate you sex. It's like, how do you tell people to do that? It's like, and especially with some of the lead actors being this is their debut role, it's kind of crazy that you would kind of do that to them. With that being said, they actually kind of tell a story. You sort of see, and it's kind of in the film. He says it, to quote, it's like, I want to make a sentimental film about sex. And the film's being very meta at this point. Because if you look at the definition of sentimental, it says of or prompted by feelings of tenderness, sadness, or nostalgia. And that's essentially what the sex scenes were. They were very nostalgic. They weren't happening in that moment. They were very sad. Some of them were them doing it for terrible reasons, and sometimes they're really in love and they're trying to try new things. So it's like, if the film is attempting to be meta, and Gaspar Noe put the idea, or put the line for Murphy in which he mentions he wants to make sentimental sex films, that makes sense. Like, there's information in the sex scenes to support that. For example, the first sex scene we watch. Let me see. Take care of... Yeah. The first sex scene we see is with the threesome. Oh, the beginning is with... I'm pretty sure it's with Electra in the very beginning. And then the second one is the threesome. And then the third one is the affair with the girl. And then... Yeah, sorry, I don't have very good notes right now. But what I'm trying to get at is that they weren't really random. And it seemed that I was able to guess when the next scene was going to come. And next sex scene was going to come. And I managed to guess what was going to happen in those scenes before they happened, because I guess they were sort of telling their own story in this sort of sentimental way. Does that make sense? I don't know. This is just my theory that I'm trying to make around it, trying to justify why he's going to put that much in there. Because it's very much a lot, and it's very hard to watch, especially if you're not into that. Like, I tried to show my girlfriend, and she was just not enjoying it. And I showed her a clip. Anyways, I want to kind of mention sort of things throughout the film. In the very beginning, he mentions Murphy's Law. The definition of Murphy's Law is when things can get bad, they can always get worse, or something law. A supposed law of nature expressed in various humorous popular sayings to the effect that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Which is an entirely true statement. I just think that if we were to compare this to like Climax or something, this film... Wow, I'm already 16 minutes in. This film didn't do those, because Climax had the same exact thing, as weird text right in the front, like in the very middle of the film. He just starts shouting himself out, saying Gaspar Noe and a bunch of texts. I felt like it worked in the movie. I don't know, I kind of liked it. I feel like here, he's just yelling Murphy's Law at you. He's like, by the way, I just want to kind of tell you this. And his name's Murphy. It's just cheesy. I can only assume that he's like, I don't know how to put this in their heads, so I'm just going to tell them right away. I'm going to tell them in the beginning just so they know. And that he just planted it there. When he goes to his significant other and mentions having to fix problems, or mentions calling Electra's mom Nora, she makes an off comment called saying that you go take care of your past, I'll take care of your future. And if we're kind of going about my theory that the director, because he wrote it too, is very specific on what he's attempting to say, then I can only assume that he's trying to say that she represents the future and Electra represents the past. And it's very interesting because he's very much stuck in his past, and he's doing all these drugs with her, and he talks about he wants to get out of there, and he's trying to get away from his theoretically future that's more mature, and he's trying to run back to this kind of vice-filled 7 Deadly Sins. He was very prideful. He thought he was going to make the best film ever. He was gluttonous. He just overconsumed in everything. He just did not, he had no control. Sort of the idea of Peter Pan. Or, not Peter Pan, sort of the idea of Pleasure Island on Pinocchio. And he just wanted to stay there so he could just turn into a jackass. And he was a jackass when he was like that. It's like, would you rather be this calm, depressing self, or this jackass who lives in the moment, is prideful, isn't very good? And apparently he does. He does enough to dwell on his life for 2 years and not want to be there anymore. Beside the fact that she's still a good wife. At no point, like, she knew who Electra was. Like, they had the threesome with his significant other. So the idea, or in the film, Electra and Murphy want to spice up their relationship, so they decide to have a threesome with their neighbor, who's Omi, his new significant other right now. So she already has knowledge of Electra and her significance in his life. So why would she, I would assume, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense that she's so open and nice, and she asks him questions and he just ignores her. So I'm like, at no point is she in the wrong. Like, she's trying to be a good wife and he's a jackass. I'm like, this doesn't make very much sense. So I'm like, what I'm saying is that it doesn't make sense that he would want that, and just because he's a flawed character. Yeah, he kind of just came to Paris even just to have sex, really. Like he's not someone to be. He just cheated. He's not a good person. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I've watched Climax by Gaspar Noé, and I noticed nothing. They're not very similar at all. Climax attempted to be a one take, and they're very small stories, and I'm kind of going to get back to that in a second. But Climax took place in one room. These dancers decide to dance, and it's this whole dance thingy, and they accidentally take drugs, and everyone freaks out, and all these crazy things happen. And that seemed like an art film. That's like, I have an idea, a cinematic idea, that I'm going to sacrifice certain storytelling things to achieve a certain idea. And I think that was successful. I think his type of cinematography and the way he does movies worked great with it. This I don't understand how is the stepping stone. I don't understand how this was the stepping stone for Climax. Because usually you see sort of progression in their films in which you do, like for this one you did, but the other one was way more complex. Climax was way more complex and intricate and seemed more detailed. Well, this just seemed just kind of redundant and dull and not that good. Like, it had good things about it. Like, for example, that was the cinematography I was going to mention, is that it's very simple. Where the story is taking place is very... I want to make films myself, and I think that someone who's aspiring filmmaker should look to a film like this, because it's simply told in an apartment and through a series of flashbacks. Some of the flashbacks, like the club scene, or maybe some outside scenes, or like obviously the sex scenes, would be hard to achieve on your own. But for the most part, this film isn't hard to make. I could make this film myself if I wanted to, and if I had the desire to. What I'm saying is that it's very inspirational for new directors, and so the cinematography has to do with that. He did this in Climax. Climax is attempting to be one long take. You can see some cuts, but he tries to keep these super long takes, and sometimes he switches it out. I don't know if it's all long takes or if he uses some film magic. But in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that this film's cinematography wasn't that intricate, wasn't that hard, and the overall film as a production wasn't amazing. And I'm like, although it looks beautiful and it looks great, it's not that impressive to me, I guess you could say. But I like it because it can at least inspire other filmmakers, and I like that idea more. Because this is a film that premiered at Cannes. It's like the most prestigious film festival. They made a film that I could make. Like, I think that's something that people and students of film should look to. Yeah, very interesting. Treat on electro, sentimental, drunk fight scene. Yeah. Overall, that was an interesting film that attempted to, I guess you could say, revive the sex film, similar to Nymphomaniac. Similar to Nymphomaniac, and I don't think it attempted or it achieved what Nymphomaniac did, because I can't think of the director's name right now. He's a great director and he knows how to make films. Gaspar Noé just seems kind of like an art guy trying to try something new. With that being said, if I was to rate it, and this is my personal opinion, out of 10, soft 6, closer to a high 5. There's no way a high 5. There's no way. It's not even a 6. Yeah, I couldn't get it. To get it to a 7, you would have to cut out at least half the sex scenes. Like, that would just make it be better. Then you have a lot more space for story, a lot more space for little things. It seems like, and that was another core I had with it. It seemed like the most serious things they just skip to, and they kind of cut to, like, for example, I think of the movie In the Mood for Love. This is nothing like that. This came out 15 years prior, and that's not even on the same level. Love is not on the same level on In the Mood for Love. And I think In the Mood for Love, I don't think that one's great either. I'm just saying to compare the two. Gaspar Noe, I think Climax is great. I might talk about Climax, and I might talk about In the Mood for Love too. Climax was great. Love, I think, was a pretentious art film that attempted to achieve an idea, and it did in a very blatant and dull and not that interesting way. I think that Climax is something way more better, and if I were to ask anyone to watch a Gaspar Noé film, it would probably be Climax, because that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that Climax, although is a very artsy film and sacrifices certain normal cinematic tools, not cinematic tools, but normal Hollywood standards for more of an artsy film, he still managed to do that in Climax while keeping an interesting film. Like, for example, in Climax, I could watch the film and I could mention a lot of things. Like, for example, the way he had the intro, like, the way he was. The movie's, not intro lines, but the credits didn't end until the middle of the movie. I think that's impressive because people like the Safdie Bros are starting to do that, and I really like that kind of style. What I'm saying, that's a very artsy thing, and someone like me, like a cinema film watcher, I can enjoy something like that. And then also Climax is very weird and has a very structured story that it can be brought to someone, although there's sex scenes in it, and there's these weird scenes that you might not want to show your mother, but you could show your mother. Like, compared to Love, it's like you could not present that to anyone without saying, hey, they're gonna have a lot of sex, and you just can't watch that. But if you do watch it, there's a lot of information. You know what I mean? You can't just bring this to anyone. And it's like, if you're trying to, it's so esoteric, you know what I mean? And pretentious, and it's trying to be a lot more than it is. And I think it tried, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of people. Like, for example, he said that he hopes that the girls cry when they see the sex scenes and men get a hard on. So it's like, yes, he achieved that. If he really wanted to achieve that, he probably did. He's probably going to inspire people because it's not that complex of a film, and I really like that. I just personally do not like it. With that being said, I'm going to sign off right in 30 minutes. But yeah, although I don't like it, I recommend everyone watching it. I don't think if you watch a lot of movies, then sacrificing 2 hours to see a film that you don't like, you learn a lot from it. And just to expand your palette, just to say, yeah, I have watched it, if someone has reference to it, or yeah, I have watched a Gaspar Noé film. Yeah, just take a watch, comment what you think, you know what I mean? Let me know what movies you want me to do. I think In the Mood for Love, because I'm really fucking with these love movies. They're like my soul. I'm just a lover. That's a not a fighter. And I watched Chungking Express, and then after watching that, I watched In the Mood for Love, and like In the Mood for Love was like way more better. Doesn't matter. You guys just go watch Love. Let me know what you think. Comment, and I'll do another one soon. Peace.